All right, welcome back. This time we're going to go over event disclaimer. This is going to be a short one. However, there's a lot to event. They're just all very, very conditional. So we're going to go over a couple of the concepts. The concepts themselves is very simple. However, implementing it is not. So if you're an Alpha State student, again, we're going to be going over this over and over and over and over and over again. But if you're not an Alpha State student, make sure you're creating your own projects because that's the only way you're going to learn. That's the only time you're going to run into a scenario, go, oh, okay, yeah, this is how it actually works, okay? So conceptually speaking, it's going to be very easy for you to go, oh, yeah, this is uh, essentially just regurgitating what that answer is, but you won't truly understand it until you use it. So with that said, let's get into this. An event is a user interaction or a state or a code condition, if you will, okay? Based on the event based on that event. So what we're trying to say here is that a button click by itself means nothing. A button click, a click event, plus knowing what that button is, you can extrapolate what the user is trying to accomplish based on what you displayed to the user itself, based on the structure of the HTML and the CSS. Okay, so what I mean by that is a submit button for Amazon.com is going to be fundamentally different than a submit button for Newegg.com. Why? Procedure is going to be a little different. Business goals are a little different. Yes, they're both e-commerce sites, but they're going to be very different procedures. So the event just triggers what code you want to run. And hopefully that made sense. And that's really the only concept that you need to understand. The event is what triggers the code to run. So, common events. DOM mutations, particular areas of web, front-end web development, you'll end up using this. Focus, full screen, input, mouse, drag, click, air. You're going to be using those a lot, okay? If you need a list of them, MDN has a good list, okay? The event listener itself, okay? Event listener waits for an event to happen. When this event happens, we're going to run what is called a callback function. A callback function essentially is that we are going to acknowledge that this event exists. However, it's a state, it's a code condition, and it's not true right now. So when this condition becomes true, we will run this function called a callback function. Hopefully that made sense. Like I've said a few times in the presentations, if you haven't watched them, event listeners are asynchronous. An event object is created when the event is triggered. So this is known as bubbling or capturing. So that event itself is going to work its way through the DOM tree. We'll get into more examples as we need them. If you're an Alpha State student, I'll call them out as it happens. If you're not, just be aware that event propagation, that's the term that you need, event propagation is a thing, okay? The event object will have a property called a target, and you'll need it often, and this is obviously true. You're going to need it for code management mostly, and again, if you're an Alpha State student, we're going to use this a lot, so don't worry about it too much if you don't understand. Just know that these things exist. Okay, here's an example. Show all listener. Okay, we're going to get element by ID, show all button. We're going to make that an object. And then based off of that object, we're going to add a listener to it, a click event, and then we're going to give it this function. This is the callback function. When this event is clicked, when this button is clicked, this click event will fire, and then we're going to run this function. Okay, so here's the structure of the event listener. We have the API call to the event listener itself. We have the event type, and then we have the callback function. And then this is the function that's being called once this is true. number 2. So we have window on load. There it is. So this is the other way of doing event listener. So there are some predefined ones on, and then whatever the event listener is normally, if we're going to add event listener through the API call. So if we were going to do that same one that we had last time, right here was show all button. Instead of doing this, I could have done on click and then passed in a function. And that's what I'm trying to show here. So window on load equals callback function. Do this after window is loaded. Okay. And that's it. So what we were trying to accomplish with this one is, 1, to expose you to event listeners. 2, that you walked away with the concept of understanding that an event listener listens for particular conditions, mostly through user interaction, to run a function, to run a particular chunk of code. Okay? So this is how you make websites and web apps functionable. And we're going to be using this quite a bit. So if you didn't understand it, it's okay. We're going to be using it a lot. So that's going to do it for this one, and I will see you in the next video.